If an avoidant does these three things, they are discarding you. It usually starts with silence. The avoidant doesn't storm out or slam doors. They simply drift away. What once felt like emotional gravity now feels like thin air. Their text becomes shorter. Their tone becomes colder. And you start wondering, did I do something wrong? But here's the truth. The avoidant doesn't discard out of hatred. They discard out of fear. When an avoidant begins to distance, it's not because they stopped caring. It's because caring too much threatens the fragile control they've built their entire emotional life around. But make no mistake, when they do these three things, they're not just pulling away, they're preparing to discard you. The first sign, they rewrite the story of your relationship. This is one of the most painful and confusing behaviors avoidants show when they're detaching. They begin to reinterpret your entire connection in a negative light, as if all the love, effort, and good moments never existed. You'll hear things like, "We were never really that compatible," or "I don't think I ever really felt what I should have felt." It's cruel, but it's also a defense mechanism. The avoidant mind cannot handle emotional closeness once it feels too real. So instead of processing that closeness as intimacy, they reframe it as pressure. They convince themselves that you were too much, that you expected too much, or that you were never right for them. Why? Because rewriting the story makes it easier to leave. If they can turn love into logic, emotion into flaw, and connection into incompatibility, they don't have to face the guilt of abandoning someone who truly cared. This is their way of rationalizing the discard. They tell themselves they're making a healthy decision, when in reality, they're just running from emotional intensity they're not equipped to handle. If you notice them becoming emotionally detached, intellectualizing everything, or downplaying what you two shared, it's not random. It's the avoidant exit strategy. They have to numb themselves to justify their retreat. What's more ironic is that deep down, they often still feel the attachment, but they've learned to translate vulnerability as danger. So rather than saying, "I'm scared," they say, "I'm done." The rewrite is never about you. It's about their need to regain control of their emotions by reframing the bond that made them feel out of control. The second sign, they go into emotional lockdown, and you can feel it even in silence. This one doesn't always involve words. It's a shift in energy. One day you're laughing, connecting, sharing secrets. The next, they feel like a stranger. Their tone becomes flat, their eyes distant, and suddenly every conversation feels like walking on eggshells. They stop responding with warmth. They stop initiating. They might even start spending time with other people just to create emotional distance. This withdrawal is their way of protecting themselves from the anxiety of being seen too deeply. Avoidants are masters of self-protection. When they sense that their independence is being threatened, even if it's by simple love or closeness, they shut down emotionally before you can hurt them. The irony? They do it to avoid rejection, but it feels like rejection to you. When they're discarding you, their emotional system goes offline. They stop being affectionate, stop being curious about your life, and stop offering emotional reassurance. And if you ask them what's wrong, they'll say things like, "Nothing, I just need space." But that space starts stretching, a day, a week, then longer, until you realize they're no longer in the relationship. This is the silent discard, and it's devastating because it's designed to be emotionally ambiguous. They want to leave without feeling like they're abandoning you, so they make you feel like it was your fault, like you pushed too hard, cared too much, or expected too little. But make no mistake, when an avoidant stops feeling present, they've already started letting go internally. The third sign, they replace connection with control. This one is subtle, but it's the final stage of the discard. When an avoidant senses the relationship slipping away, or rather, when they start making it slip away, they often shift into control mode. They might start setting harsh boundaries, not to protect themselves emotionally, but to assert dominance over detachment. You'll hear things like, "I just need to focus on myself," or "I can't give you what you want." They act decisive, confident, cold, but underneath, it's a mask of panic. The discard isn't as clean as it looks on the surface. It's a defense mechanism in disguise. This stage often comes with testing behaviors. They'll pull away to see how you react. They'll ignore your messages to gauge whether you'll chase. And when you do, it confirms their belief that love equals pressure. So they withdraw even more, telling themselves they were right to leave. It's a twisted emotional loop, one where your attempts to reconnect only push them further away. But notice this, they won't completely disappear at first. They might hover, check your social media, or send random messages like, "Hope you're doing okay." That's not care. That's control disguised as care. They want to make sure you're still emotionally available to them, even while they detach. The avoidant discard isn't always loud. In fact, it's almost always quiet. It's the slow erosion of intimacy until there's nothing left to hold on to. But behind their calm exterior, they're battling inner chaos. Avoidants don't discard because they've outgrown you. They discard because they've outgrown their ability to stay vulnerable. When the emotions get too deep, the fear takes over. Fear of engulfment, fear of losing identity, fear of needing someone and being hurt again. So they shut the door, not realizing they're also locking themselves inside their own loneliness. If you've ever been on the receiving end of this, you know the confusion it brings. One day they adore you, the next day you're invisible. It's like loving someone who's always half gone. But here's the hard truth. Once the discard phase begins, chasing them only feeds their fear. It confirms their belief that closeness equals loss of freedom. The more you try to fix it, the more they run. What they need, and what they fear most, is your absence. Because absence exposes the truth. It forces them to sit with the emptiness they thought they could avoid. And for some avoidants, that's the moment of awakening. When the silence stops feeling safe and starts feeling like punishment. So what should you do when you realize an avoidant is discarding you? You stop fighting for connection and start protecting your peace. You stop trying to make them stay and start asking yourself why you're holding on to someone who's afraid to love you. You let the distance form, and instead of chasing, you observe. Observe how they react to your absence. Do they stay gone? Then they were already leaving. Do they return once they realize your silence isn't a punishment, but a boundary? Then maybe there's space for a new kind of connection, one built on awareness, not avoidance. Here's the paradox of the avoidant discard. They think they're ending something, but what they're really doing is starting a new cycle of their own pain. They run, they isolate, they feel relief, then regret seeps in. They miss the safety you gave them, but the shame of how they left keeps them from coming back. And even if they do, they'll often return not because they're ready to love differently, but because they can't tolerate the emotional void they created. That's why understanding these 3 signs is so important. Not to decode their behavior, but to protect yourself from mistaking emotional withdrawal for closure. Because when an avoidant rewrites a story, shuts down emotionally and replaces connection with control, they are discarding you. Not always permanently, but emotionally. And when that happens, your job isn't to prove your worth. It's to remember that love isn't supposed to feel like chasing safety. It's supposed to feel like being safe. The truth is, avoidants don't just discard people. They discard possibility. The possibility of being loved without fear. The possibility of being seen without shame. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let them go, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. Because the moment you stop trying to make them stay, you stop playing the role they wrote for you, the one where love means convincing someone not to run.